It's funny how often you talk with proponents who say, I tried engaging First Nations early and it didn't go well. And then I ask them, what was honestly still on the table? Most of the time, the answer is nothing. And no stakeholder group, especially First Nations, is impressed when you approach them with a plan that you're not willing to change. By the end of this video, you'll have a simple tool for figuring out how to do early First Nations consultation efficiently and transparently. Here's a misconception that holds many people in industry back. We look at early consultation as a set of dates on a calendar somewhere before permit applications are filed. And you did it. You talked with First Nations before you submitted your permit applications. And so you engaged early, right? But engagement is more than just timelines. Engagement is about discussing components of the project that are still open to change. If the route's set, the site's set, the water's locked, and the schedule's fixed, then you didn't engage in good faith. You engaged before you filed. And that's not the same thing. And the people sitting across the table from you can detect that in about 5 minutes. And once they've decided that you're just going through the motions, every future conversation becomes harder and slower. So, how do you do it differently? Every nation is different. Every project is different. There's no playbook that works everywhere and for everyone. So, what I'm about to tell you is a starting point, not a one size fits all. Before you engage, build a decision matrix. The matrix has 3 columns: what's genuinely fixed, what's semi fixed but could still move, and what's actually open. The middle column matters most. It's where the real negotiation lives. Things in here might be mitigation measures, project timing, First Nations access, monitoring, workforce planning, design choices that you would defend but could revisit if the case was good. Then, and this is really important, be brutally honest about which column each decision sits in. The route, the camp location, the construction window, the access roads, how much water you're taking. Most proponents put almost everything, in their mind at least, in that fixed column. And then they wonder why engagement feels hollow. By all means, only invite input on what can actually change. But if you want meaningful engagement with First Nations, they need to see how their inputs are reflected in your decision making. Because the fastest way to lose a First Nations trust is to ask for feedback on a decision that you're not willing to change. They will spot the theater, and you will spend the next 2 years paying for it. And if I can be honest, a map often isn't enough. If a decision is genuinely open, then First Nations will need the time and the capacity to actually weigh in on it. That means having funding for their own technical review with their own experts to actually look at the real information, not just a summary. That might mean working with the government to help find some capacity funding for First Nations. Or if you have the means, providing the funding yourself for First Nations to hire an SME to join your technical studies can go a long way in building trust. So to review, to conduct meaningful First Nations consultation, they need transparency on what decisions are actually open to discussion, a clear path to influencing those decisions, and a funding pathway to meaningfully participate. I want to close with one more uncomfortable thing a decision matrix does. It can show you early on that the one thing a First Nation needs is the one thing that you can't move. I don't know how many times I've been in a room where First Nations are asking for something that the proponent can't deliver. Say, more decision-making rights over land. Understanding this gap isn't a failure. It's the cheapest bad news that a proponent can get. It enables you to transparently refocus on the things you can control, while responsibly redirecting the things you can't control to the right authorities, like the Crown. Because remember, ultimately, it is the Crown's duty to consult, not the proponents. So the next time you hear somebody say that they engaged early and it didn't go anywhere, don't ask them when they started. Ask them what was still on the table. And if the honest answer is nothing, it wasn't early engagement. It was a press release. If any of this is resonating with your First Nation file, I'd be curious what you're seeing on the ground. Please reach out directly or leave a comment below. To everybody else, thank you for watching.